fellow Whisky Club members, it is fantastic to be joining you on a cool Hobart evening down here, but I am joined by a little bit of whiskey royalty to my side. We have with us the master distiller of the legendary Aberlour distillery. I mean, we know it's one of our favourites, Mr. Graeme Cruickshank. How are you, mate?
Good, Seamus. Good to be with you here and the members of the Whisky Club. Early in this Wednesday morning here on Speyside, it's just 10:30 here, so just a couple of hours out of the office, just finding my feet and getting ready for today's chores.
Only a few drams in, I'm sure this will be one great of plenty of others. No, it is one of the few jobs where you could probably get away with having a dram in the morning, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. Very, very, very excited to. But there's going to be a lot of members who haven't really been around since the last time they would have seen or heard your name, and that would have been an Aberlour release years ago at this point. We are here talking about the most recent whiskey of the month, the 2010 batch that you created with Sandy for us. Now, incredibly excited to get into this whiskey, but before we do, can we tell the members a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm Graeme Cruickshank. I've been in the distilling game since 1985. I started my whiskey career down in the town of Keith in Speyside. That's Strathisla Distillery.
Fantastic.
Yeah, started there when Seagram owned the business at that time. So they had 9 malt distilleries in the group. And fairly early in my career, I decided that I wanted to move off the shop floor and do different things, and moved around a few distilleries in the group. So I worked at like Longmorn Distillery, Glen Grant, the Brave Isle Distillery, or the Braes of Glenlivet.
A personal favourite there. There's some crackers in the stable, isn't there?
Oh, crikey, aye. Well, the Braes of Glenlivet is probably one of the most picturesque distilleries we've got. I mean, the design and the architecture up there was, for me, it was just the epitome of what a malt distillery should look like on Speyside, and it's fabulous. And then when Pernod Ricard took over the business in 2001, I was promoted into the role of assistant manager at Aberlour Distillery. That was my first sort of insight into Aberlour Distillery back there in 2001. Nice. And then we took over the old Allied distillers, so that meant spells at Glendronach, at Scapa Distillery, Tormore. So I've been around a few distilleries in this is my 40th year in distilling. So
Sandy pipped you by 1 year, because he's just done his 40th as well.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked him. Are we doing a 40-year-old release for your anniversary? Is that the plan?
Watch this space. You never know.
Yes.
You never know. We've got a few things in the pipeline. Obviously with the new distillery getting built and everything. So, yeah, watch this space.
Fantastic. Well, mate, it's very exciting to have you here, and it's also very exciting to get you in front of members, because, I mean, you are this beacon of knowledge for what is so many members' favourite distillery. So, members, I have to remind you, it's very lucky for us to get a chance to talk to someone like Graeme. Please pepper all the questions you can. Ask about cask, ask about the distillery. I mean, it's such an iconic distillery, but it's also just so quintessentially Speyside. Graeme, I mean, you've just listed a laundry list of incredible Speyside distilleries and some classic Highlanders in there. What would you say makes Aberlour just a little bit different?
I think Aberlour's been different. The location, I mean, it's so tucked away in this little wee corner of the village of Aberlour. I mean, you can drive past the gate quite easily here and never know there's a distillery there. So we go about our business quite quietly here, you know. We don't shout from the rooftops because we let the whiskey speak for itself. But Aberlour, for me, since I came here, there's always been a true family feel about the distillery. When I first came here, there was 3 of the team on the shop floor were second generation distillers, so their fathers had worked here before them. I think now, because of retirements and moves, I think there's only one of them left. But yeah, and the guys that work here, they've all pretty much in excess of 20 years service. So yeah, I mean, when they come here, you become part of that Aberlour family, and you become just sort of embedded in the history and the heritage of the site. And
Absolutely.
I think, yeah, from a production point of view, the guys are immensely proud of what they achieve, because everybody, when they go on holiday and they see a bottle of Aberlour on a duty-free shelf, they think, wow, that's come a long way from this little wee town in Speyside. It's a population of 1,500 living in the village here. And you've got Aberlour Distillery at one end, and you've got another famous product at the other. You've got Walker's Shortbread at the end of the street. You know? So the global impact of those two products, it's amazing.
It's also, if you're going to be known for two things, shortbread biscuits and whiskey, I mean, you've kind of nailed it, haven't you?
You put yourself on the map, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Aberlour's done that, you know.
But, you know, it's so obvious visiting the distillery that so many locals still are on the shop floor to this day, are still in the distillery. I mean, it really still feels like part of the community. I think that's so quintessentially part of the Aberlour story. But when it comes down to what's in the bottle, what would you say makes that quintessential Aberlour? What's the house spirit style?
Yeah, so we take, I mean, the whiskey itself, you see in the bottle here, okay, that's a 13-year-old whiskey in there. But my day job, it takes me 5 days to produce what we call in the trade is new make spirit. So the new make spirit is what we lay down in the oak casks for that maturation period of at least 3 years. And for us, we take very seriously the raw materials that we buy in. And we've been in cohorts with our maltster, Chris Maltings in Port Gordon for the last 8 years, and they're our single source supplier, and they source all our malted barley from within a 15-mile radius of the distillery. So we're going back to our roots, because James Fleming, our founder, he was a grain merchant in the town of Aberlour, and that's what he would have done. He would have sourced all the barley locally. And we feel that gives us a real essence of this sort of terroir and coming through into how that impacts on our whiskey. And it's also reducing our carbon footprint with the transport of malted barley, because some of the maltsters that supply distilleries can come from the borders of Scotland. So they're driving like a 400-mile round trip to get a load of malt from Berwick up to Dufton or wherever, you know. So quite an impact.
I have to ask, on that barley, and I know it's a question that the members are going to pepper as well. Is there any barley types that you feel work best? Is there anything that you're looking for? Is it proteins? Is it yields? What makes good barley in that region?
Well, the most important thing for us is processability. Is how we can process that through the distillery, because in years gone by, and this year is an example. Last year the harvest was a wee bit later. They had some wet periods just before they harvested, which has meant that the barley, the malted barley this season, has been prone to skinning. And when I talk about skinning, it's losing the husk when we process it through the milling process. And when we lose the husk, and we don't retrieve that back into mash tun, we start to get drainage issues in the mash tun. And as you know, when you have drainage issues, you need to make tweaks to your process to aid the process. And that can lead to certain implications with the new make spirit in terms of the flavour profile of the new make spirit as it's coming through. So yeah, it's very critical that we work with the maltsters, we work with the growers to make sure that we get to the right point in the harvest and we're getting that barley harvested at the right time to prevent that sort of thing from happening. But it's not always easy. But the maltsters, I mean, they've got thousands of tons of that barley laid aside. So I mean, they can blend the barley after they malt it to try and help us with our processing. So it really is it's a partnership, and it's a working partnership to make sure that we're getting that processability and the quality. So the yield is the other thing.
Yeah. So
So
you've got fantastic barley coming in. It's ripe for processing. And then what are we doing with it? We're obviously getting it into a mash tun, getting some water there. I know it's a classic geeky question, but 2 waters, 3 waters, what are the temps? 4 waters?
Yeah, so we're processing 12.5 tons of malted barley per mash. We mash it, currently we're mashing at 64.5 degrees C. We have a second water at 75 degrees C, and then our third water is currently 94 degrees C. So that third water goes all the way back to the hot liquor tank to become the first and second waters of the next mash. We're pumping 56,000 litres to a washback with 300 litres of liquid yeast, distiller's yeast. And we ferment for 51 hours before it gets sent through to the wash charger and onto the stills. Yeah, so
a little more cloudy, a little more funk and character to it. That's brilliant. And then it hits the stills. And I already have one question from one Anthony McWayne, who always asks fantastic questions. Does Aberlour have a long distillation or a short distillation?
Well, we have the wash stills. They distill for 4 hours. So it's kind of a unique setup. It's not unique. It's kind of different setup at Aberlour. We distill our wash still twice to give us enough low wines to charge the spirit still. So the wash stills run on a 4-hour cycle. 2 times 4 gives you 8, and the spirit still runs on an 8-hour cycle. If that makes sense. So yeah. So for the size of the stills and the charge, that's probably pretty familiar sort of cycle time for stills to run. You know.
Definitely.
Because we're in a rush of distillation. The spirit still distillation will run. The middle cut runs for almost 3 hours to collect 3,500 litres of spirit. Yeah.
Fantastic. And when it's coming off the still and you've got it in vat, what is the character of perfect Aberlour distillate? What does it taste like?
Our character profile for the new make spirit is sort of like a classic Speyside. It's got that fruitiness, that floralness, but hint of citrus and definitely some black currant in there. If you've ever been to Aberlour and you've come through the stillhouse in Aberlour, the amount of people that say to us, I'm getting black currants or Ribena, and it's so prevalent, and it's always a good sign when you walk through the stillhouse and you get, well, we're on track because as a group we meet every week. So within the Pernod group we have got 12 malt distilleries, and every week each of the charges of the spirit tankers that leaves those sites, there's a sample taken, and we analyse each of those samples every week on a big round table with Sandy's team, and we assess the new make spirit based on the standard profile for the site. And it's always a good indicator as to making sure that we're hitting the absolute spot for the new make spirits getting filled into the casks, because there's no point us getting all the quality casks if the spirit going in there is not just what it should be. Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, there's a very old and very simple recipe: good spirit, good casks equals good whiskey, and I imagine that's your approach the whole way through.
Yeah, I mean, the importance of quality, I said, that weekly analysis, and the weekly analysis of the spirit isn't all just down to myself. My guys in the shop floor, they're all trained for what we call organoleptic assessment. So they're trained to use their nose when they're using the new make spirit. They use their nose when we take in the malted barley. So when the malted barley arrives at site, they grab a sample and they'll fill it into one of these sample glasses, and they'll nose it dry, and then they'll add boiling water, and then nose it wet, because the boiling water can release any off notes that might be in the malted barley. So we're really reliant on these guys as the early capture for quality, because there's no point taking in that malted barley. It's going to stink of, for heaven's sake, it might be peat, because the guys that are hauling malted barley around Speyside can be going to Balvenie, they can go to Benriach, you know, and they might be hauling peat at some point. So we don't want any essence of that in our Aberlour because we're just totally non-peat, you know.
Look,
So they're the early capture, these guys, yeah. They're doing important
well, I
things.
feel you, and I should say, members, you are peppering me with fantastic questions. I promise I'll ask as many of them as I can, but there's a great one here from Brian Hickey, and I think it really speaks to what you're just talking about. So he's asked, Graeme, what is your number one concern throughout the distilling process? What do you really want to make sure you get right and clearly think it all the way through? What makes a top dram?
I think for us is keeping on top of the process from A all the way through to Z. And I mean, there's a lot goes in there. We play great importance on the hygiene of the plant, because if we don't keep certainly in the mashing process and the fermentation, if we don't keep that plant pristine, clean, we're going to start getting bacteria in there. Bacteria can affect our conversion in the mash tun. It can affect our fermentation in the washback. Any of these bacterial elements in there upset those rhythms, then we start to get these off notes and different compounds coming through in the fermented wash. And without a doubt, we try our best to clean it up with the copper in the stills, but without a doubt, some of that can come through into the new make spirit. So yeah, it's all about that quality. Yeah. So hygiene is paramount. Yeah. So I hope I've answered Brian's question. Yeah.
It's a great answer, and I can tell you, there's only one other master distiller who's answered that question like that, and he's actually just retired. It's your good friend down at Glen Grant down the road. So you two clearly don't just share a lot of tenure.
Well, I'll tell you, I worked for Dennis for a number of years. He was the manager at Glen Grant and Glenlivet when I was at Strathyler. And when I was on the shop floor, him and Dennis, we have what we call an on-call system for the weekends when you're working weekends. And whenever I had to call out Dennis, you know, he wouldn't just come out and fix the problem. He would explain to you where it went wrong and how you can fix it. Yeah. And over the years, I've had the luxury of working with Dennis, Malcolm, Alan Winchester, Douglas, Cruickshank, you know, great master distillers. And you pick little morsels from each of them, their styles and how they go about their business, and you try and build it into how you carry out your job, you know. So, but Dennis, fantastic distiller, great ambassador for the Scotch whisky industry, and of course he's got his OBE, and so to see him retire, it's a well-deserved retirement.
Very well deserved. Massive friend of the club as well, and an absolute character. I'm conscious this whole time we've been talking about a distillery that at least last time I visited was in a bit of a construction site. I don't know if the members will be aware of this, but going through pretty major renovations, aren't you?
Yeah, so we're in probably year 3 of our sort of renovations. The Aberlour distillery currently produces just under 4 million litres of alcohol a year, which might sound like a lot to most people.
Certainly to Australians, yeah.
When you think about like the Glenlivet producing almost 22 million litres, Macallan 15, Glenfiddich 20, you know, we're still a small portion of it. And with a single malt brand, Aberlour, trying to grow that brand globally, there's always been a demand to sort of grow production. So we finally managed to receive the capital expenditure from Pernod to allow us to develop the site. So we're now this is like phase 4. The first phase was to improve our effluent treatment plant at the distillery, which was commissioned in 2022. The old effluent treatment plant was demolished to make way for the new pot ale evaporator, which is currently being built and be commissioned next year. But in the meantime, we had to demolish 3 duty-free warehouses on site to make way to construct a brand new distillery. And it's ambitious but we're going to keep the old distillery running. So we're still producing this 4 million litres a year. We're going to build a new distillery, and we're hopefully going to transition over August next year to a new, really high-tech distillery. When I say high-tech, it's more in line with our ambitious targets for water saving, for energy, for heat recovery, to try and get the distillery to net zero. So, yeah,
Fantastic.
so it's ambitious times and fun times. It makes your job really interesting.
Well, I can only imagine you only get to rebuild a distillery every now and again, and this might be the first and last chance for you. Is there anything that you're putting in specifically to make your life easier or make the whiskey better?
Well, I look after Dominic Distillery down in Carden as well as part of the group. And Dominic was built in 2014.
Yeah, so it's your second at least.
Yeah. So one of the things we did down there was we put cooling jackets on the washbacks, and that was designed to save us water in the water cooling. So instead of cooling our water to almost like 20 degrees, we cool our water to 30 degrees, so we're saving water. But what we found with the commission of the washback coolers at Dominic is that setting at 30 degrees and holding at 30 degrees, it can help improve our efficiencies in the fermentation process, and it's improved the consistency of the new make spirit profile. It's startling. So we're doing that here at Aberlour. We're putting cooling jackets on all the washbacks, and hopefully that'll bear some fruit for us here as well. I'm sure it will.
That's fantastic. And for anyone who hasn't tried the spirit from Dominic, that is absolutely cracking single malt. That's going to be a world beater, isn't it?
Have you tried the 6-year-old? Yeah. Did you try it?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, while I was at the distillery at Aberlour last year, and it's absolutely cracking spirit.
That's lovely. I mean, I need to blow my own trumpet here, but we talked about the new make spirit circle every Tuesday, and latterly, the distillery has always been everybody's preferred spirit, Dominic. Aberlour's been a very close second. Don't forget it. So, but everybody loves Dominic on the new make.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I just love the idea of there being banter about quality of spirit. So that's top notch. I have to be conscious. We're here riffing about incredible spirit, but really, incredible spirit goes into incredible whiskey. Now, I'm going to keep peppering you with questions after this, but I would love to talk the members through the whiskey that hopefully they all have in front of them, because it is an absolute corker. Would love it if you could kind of guide us through a bit of a tasting on it.
Yeah, certainly. So, collaboration with yourselves. I mean, we'll start the last time when Cindy sent me this lovely Whisky Club glass. So, I think it's a perfect glass to taste this whiskey in. But, yeah, a 13-year-old Aberlour, Double Cask Matured, of course. And we talked about the quality of the new make spirit and how that's ensured, but the quality of the casks is so important. Every drop of Aberlour that's filled into cask, the casks are assessed before we fill them. So the American oak barrels, Sandy and his blending team, they make particular importance on nosing each and every cask that the spirit is filled into. And then when it comes to the stage where those casks are getting ready for maturation, that sampling process kicks in, and they start to sample it just to make sure that the whiskey is ready for, or meets the expectation that we want to present for such like this really exclusive bottling of Aberlour. So on the nose, typical Aberlour in a Speyside, that really.
Yeah.
The Aberlour, that's that fruitiness and red apples,
Yeah. Just leaps out of the
real
glass.
Fruitiness. Oh, it's lovely, isn't it? I mean, it's just 48 ABV, but I think it's so easy to drink without water. But by adding a little bit of water in there, you do get to release that real flavours. But Let's have a
Well,
wee
yeah, I
taste.
mean the shortbread on the with the water, but no, yeah, don't let me stop you from having a taste because it's cracking.
So that fruity notes just continue on the palate, yeah. But that
Mm,
sweet spiciness and a little hint of the oak, that
mm,
American oak, that vanilla, a little bit of cinnamon in there as well, I think.
mm.
But that fruitiness, that orangey zest, strawberries in there. It's just, and
It's a
as I
real
say,
fruit salad whiskey.
oof,
But
yeah,
you can feel the sherry casks doing their work too. I think this is why Aberlour's double cask is so good because yeah, the American oak's there with the bright fruits, those are the spirit, but that sherry is still elongating everything, making it chewy.
that's the thing about Aberlour. Everybody talks about the Aberlour and the influence that the sherry has in Aberlour whiskies, but I think on this bottling we've found a real good balance between the American oak and the sherry oak.
Mm,
Um, I mean, I always said that the Aberlour 16-year-old was the sort of epitome of double cask maturation, but this
mm.
is a bloody good second. I kid you not, it really is. And I think I did say that will blow your socks off. So I hope everybody's sitting there on their bare feet today. Yeah.
You certainly did. You certainly did. And it's not just us that think it's great. It's worth giving a mention that the wonderful folks at San Fran, I think they told us about 2 days before it was announced that it's scored 99 out of 100 at the San Fran Whiskey and Spirits Comp, which is huge. Um, we haven't found out yet whether it's best in class, but we do know it's on a very, very short list. So watch this space. This might be
Yeah.
the rarest whiskey that you never got in just 2 moments.
Well, when you're talking about awards, just last couple of weeks, it was the Spirit of Speyside Whisky Festival up here in
Of course.
Speyside. And Aberlour had Aberlour Bona represented in the judging panel. And not only did we win the best non-age statement category with Aberlour Bona, we
Shocking.
won the best overall whiskey in the Spirit of Speyside whisky tasting this year. So very, very proud moment for the team here. It's fantastic, and it's just adds to the list of accolades that we pick up over the years. And
Massive
hopefully,
plaudits, mate. Massive plaudits. I'm conscious that we're running thin on time, and before I forget, I'll remember that the team will be screaming at me if I do not mention it. Because for anyone who did miss out on a bottle, or anyone who's tasting it and going, I only got one, there were some damaged bottles or damaged tubes, I should say, that came into the warehouse, and you never want to be stuck with a damaged tube because it's whiskey that's still perfect. So we've actually snuck them up onto the site for tonight only. So anyone who's keen on grabbing that little extra bottle, those will be some of the last going about, and they're on there tonight. So blessings to you. I've got one more fantastic question here from Anthony McIlwain, and then I'll start having to ask other people's questions. He's asking specifically about this wonderful whiskey. Is this a vatting of two full maturation cask types, so full maturation in American oak and a full maturation in sherry being brought together, or is it more of a finishing process? Great question.
no, so yeah, great question. No, that is one thing that Aberlour always upholds, with the exception of our 18-year-old whiskey. So our double cask maturation, we always mature for American oak in the length of maturation and in the sherry oak, and then we marry those two together just to give you the perfect balance of both type of casks. Yeah, great question.
Oh,
Enjoy it. Chew it up,
excuse
boy.
me.
Chew it up.
Oh, goodness, I apologize. Chewing on
Right.
some very tasty whiskey, but it is still chewing. Yeah, that's what you mean by oily whiskey. It sticks around. Uh, I saw a fantastic question in here. Back onto the production side from one Ian Reid, who I believe is a Tasmanian working at a distillery down south, and he's asking about fill ABVs. So, of course, the distillery as an industry standard seems to fill at around 63 and a half, maybe a little low, maybe a little higher. For you and for Aberlour, are you filling at a fixed ABV? Is it that 63.5? Are you sometimes filling high? Are you sometimes filling low for different cask types? Is there any experimentation going on?
No, our model for Aberlour is every drop of new make spirit that leaves the site here in the tanker will leave at VAT strength, so typically around about 69.5. When it gets to filling store, it gets reduced to 63.5. So that's just our model. Who's not to say we might experiment in the future? You know, it's always good to do something different, but no, at the moment it's all filled at 63.5. Yeah.
The wonderful team has come to my rescue. Thank you.
Good question, though, Ian. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, Ian. There's a really good question here from David and Caroline Taylor, two fantastic members who hopefully have visited the distillery because it's very informed to the place. Does the distillery get its water from the river that runs alongside it, or are we pulling from a different water source?
Right, so we've got the Lower Burn that runs adjacent to the distillery, and it's a tributary of the River Spey, which is 500 metres down the road there. So we use the Lower Burn for cooling purposes only in the distillation process. So we bring that water in from the Lower Burn, we pump it through the condensers, and we use that to cool our distillate in the condenser. Our process water comes from springs in a piece of land called Birkenbush Farm, which is like half a mile, 3/4 of a mile from the distillery. And the process, the water for production all comes from those Birkenbush springs. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think the fact that it's all so close and it's also such similar water really shows in a lot of Speyside whiskey, but it's nice to have it speak of its place. I've got a few members here, obviously hearing about your 40 years and what a tenure that must have been just in Scotch whisky in general. Got a few members, including Troy Nickel, asking if you could repeat any of the batches of the last 40 years from any of the distilleries. What would you love to repeat? What are your favourites? What do you want to see in a glass again?
Well, I've got a few favourites, and they're probably from all the distilleries that I've worked in. I'd probably start off with a Stafila 12-year-old. Just because it's my hometown. And I just think the spirit that comes out of Stafila when it's matured to that, I think 12-year-old from Stafila is its peak age. It's just bang on for Stafila.
Yeah, fantastic.
Probably the next one would be, say, I spent a lot of time in Scapa when I went up there, and Scapa 6-year-old is just a whiskey that, it's just like heaven in a glass.
How good is Scapa? Nobody knows this.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah. And then from a non-company, it's always been a favourite of mine ever since I've started drinking whiskey, would be, and I worked there for some time as well, would be the Glendronach 15-year-old. I just love the place. I just love the distillery. I love the setting. I love the way they do the maturation. And yeah, it's just some great whiskies.
Some incredible people, some incredible whiskies. I think you'll have hit quite a few members' favourites on there. You've certainly hit a distillery I love in Scapa, although I love all of the distilleries. How could you not? But yeah, that's fantastic to hear. The one question I think that I've seen quite a few from the members is, if you're doing something with Aberlour and you're responsible for this incredible spirit, what cask would you next like to see it go into? Do you just want cracking American oak and classic Oloroso sherry, or do you want to see it go into something kind of newer, kind of more experimental?
Yeah, I think there's such a wide array of different cask types now, and I think there needs to be some experimentation to find what we think would fit with Aberlour. I mean, you see wine casks, you port cask, ruby, you get, all sorts, Mizunara. So yeah, I mean, working with Sandy, we're always experimenting, looking to what else can we do? What can we be innovative with in our maturation process?
I'm
Um,
conscious.
I'm,
I'm conscious at this point. I'm sorry to cut in, but we've referenced Sandy many times here. Not all of our members may have tuned in for the virtual tastings for Sandy back in the Valentine's series, but for anyone who hasn't had the pleasure, he is a terrific and the terrific master blender behind the entire Pernod Malts distillery group, and has produced many fantastic whiskies for the club. He's an absolute treat to work with from our end as well, and it sounds like he is from yours. He's not a terrible co-worker. So
Sandy's a dream. He's a dream to work with because he doesn't get involved in the production. He leaves us to do our stuff, and we leave him to do what he does. We get
fantastic.
involved. I mean, I was down with Sandy for the next batch of Abuna, working with his team, and he went through the whole process, and we were very, very meticulous in the casks that were picked for the next batch of Abuna, batch 82, I think it is. And he's a great asset to have, So fantastic
Incredible.
for the group.
Let's just sit in that a moment. Batch 82 of the Avuna. That's mad. I remember the early teens. I can't
Yeah.
believe it. For you, you must have really seen Aberlour kind of become this cult distillery over the years. It must be incredible.
I remember when Abuna first hit the shelves. I mean, I was involved in the distillery in the late '90s when it hit the shelves. But as soon as it did hit the shelves, everybody in the industry was talking about Aberlour Abuna. This thing, whoa, these guys are just blowing it out of the water. They've kicked it out of the park here. And I got up here, and my predecessor Douglas Cruickshank had taken it to something like batch 52. And I thought, where did that come from? And then I sit back and I think now, I'm in batch 53 was my first batch, so I'm at 30 batches on my own, So I think, crikey. But it's just such a
53
huge.
was your first batch. Jesus,
Yeah, batch
I think
53. Yeah.
that might be the last bottle I bought. That's incredible.
Right. But yeah, it's just such a huge cult following, and when people are just looking for the next batch to come out and get it off the shelf, and yeah.
That's fantastic. It's a blessing because it's terrific whiskey. Look, I'm conscious that we can't keep you all day, although I would very much like to. I've got one last question, and it's back to drinking whiskey. It's from Shane Adam, and it's a bit of a question just on your own pairings. I mean, we have this fantastic whiskey here in front of us. The guys want to know what you would drink it with, what you would eat it with. Are you having it in a Boilermaker with a beer, or are you having it with a steak, or maybe a Walker's biscuit? How would you pair this whiskey?
Yeah, I think this whiskey goes really well as an after dinner, and I think we talked about this. It was, if you get a really nice mature Scottish cheddar and a bit of cracker on there, I'll tell you that's a lovely, lovely pairing for this whiskey. Just to sip and savour after dinner, get into that cheese, just amazing, really good.
Fantastic. Well, look, I've seen a few members asking you whether this will be the last time we see you, and I'm pretty happy to say, Graeme, I think we'll be seeing more of your face in the years ahead. Powers that be, maybe there's some whiskey ahead of us together. But what I would love to do right now is just thank you for your time on behalf of all the members. We're very lucky to get your time. Hopefully we've convinced you to have a dram in the morning with us. I hope you enjoyed it. But from myself and all the members, I'd like to just say a massive cheers to you.
And you, Seamus, and to all the members out there, have a nice day or have a nice evening. And Slange
of our members. I hope you enjoy every dram here. Now, just to do a little bit of housekeeping for everyone, as usual, guys, thank you for watching along. Brian Hickey, you are successful as the winner of the yet-to-be-announced Whiskey of the Month. And for all of the members watching along, tomorrow night, 7 p.m., we will be announcing the June Whiskey of the Month. It is 10 years in the making. So watch very, very closely. It's going to be an absolute cracker. And for everyone else, again, thank you for joining us and have a terrific evening.
Cheers.